I will call our meeting to order. Welcome to the State Board of Education's monthly meeting. I'll remind our visitors to please silence your cell phone, and also that the board meeting is being live streamed. I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and I've asked Mr. Franklin to lead us in the invocation. Please join me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you bow with me, please? Our gracious Lord and Heavenly Father, we come to you today with grateful hearts, grateful for the opportunity and privilege to be here today, and to begin by giving thanks to you for the blessings that you've extended to each of us. We thank you for the opportunity and privilege of being here today to discuss policy that will impact the lives of Mississippi's children. Lord, we want to thank you for those people who give of themselves all day, every day, to enhance the educational opportunities of our young. So be with us today and guide and direct and protect each of us. These things we humbly ask you. Amen.
All right, our first order of business is to have the approval of the minutes from the October 10th board work session and the minutes of October 11th board meeting.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next is the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? If so, I'll entertain a motion to do so now.
Item number 5. No backup material. Are we going to get some?
There is a PowerPoint that you're going to get. I'm trying to remember if I put it in your folder or not, but you'll get a PowerPoint. Let me just check, because your PowerPoints are in here as well. Yes, there's a PowerPoint in your folder. I'm going to go over the contents of your folder, but there's a PowerPoint in your folder. No, no. It's just an information item. It's not an action item. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So no addition.
Move for approval.
Favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We will roll right on into our recognition ceremony.
Good morning. Dr. Dean, Dr. Wright, and board members, it is now my honor to present to you the board recognitions for the month of November. Today we honor 2 students who have been nationally recognized for academics and leadership, and the Mde Employee of the Month. 2 junior ROTC cadets in the Jackson Public School District and Rankin County School District have earned the Legion of Valor Bronze Cross for Achievement Award this year. The Legion of Valor Bronze Cross is awarded to cadets who have shown outstanding excellence in military and academic subjects while enrolled in the junior ROTC program. To receive this award, they must be in the top 10% of their junior ROTC class and have demonstrated outstanding leadership and involvement in their school and community. They must also be recommended by their senior junior ROTC instructor and their high school principal. This year's recipients both happen to be in the Army Junior ROTC program. Only 1 Legion of Valor award is authorized for every 4,000 cadets in an Army Junior ROTC brigade. This year, Army Cadet Command in Fort Knox, Kentucky selected 24 Army Junior ROTC cadets from 314,000 cadets worldwide as Legion of Valor recipients. And 2 of these cadets are from Mississippi and here with us today. Honorees, as I call your names, please join Dr. Dean and Dr. Wright at the front of the room. Our first honoree is Cadet Colonel Reuben Banks, a senior at Jim Hill High School. He is currently serving as the Cadet Brigade Commander for Jackson Public Schools. He is the senior ranking cadet over 7 Army JROTC units and nearly 1,800 cadets. This is going to take a minute because this young man is quite accomplished, but Mama would want to hear this. Cadet Banks is highly qualified for this award as he is truly an example of the whole person concept: scholar, athlete, and leader. As a scholar, he is ranked number 11 out of 286 students in his senior class, with a cumulative grade point average of 4.5 on the International Baccalaureate 5.0 scale, and an ACT score of 21. His academic credentials, personal charm, charisma, and spirited attitude reflect academic excellence. He has worked with and received mentoring from several key governmental figures who hold offices in the city of Jackson, the state, and Congress. As an athlete, he is captain of Jim Hill's Cadet Challenge team and was previously a member of the golf team. As a leader, he is the number 1 cadet out of 263 in the Jim Hill JROTC program, and the number 1 of 1,782 JROTC cadets in Jackson Public Schools. Here's what his advisor said about him. Cadet Banks exhibits nothing but excellence and has the perseverance to see a task through to the very end. He is also a person of very high moral character, very disciplined, courteous, and always thinking and concerned about trying to help where there is a need. Cadet Banks also recently served as governor of the 2018 Mississippi Boys State at Ole Miss and was also selected to represent Mississippi in Washington, D.C. at Boys Nation. At Boys Nation, he served as a committee chairman and met several key figures, including the Vice President of the United States. Cadet Banks has also served for the past 4 years as a member of the U.S. Air Force Auxiliary Civil Air Patrol, where he's a cadet commander, communications officer, medic, and assistant ground team leader. Also, through his volunteer organization alone, he has over 250 hours of community service. After graduation, Cadet Banks plans to attend the U.S. Air Force Academy and pursue a degree in mechanical engineering, and will later apply for law school to become a military attorney. Cadet Banks, your academic and leadership achievements are certainly worthy of celebration. Congratulations.
Remarks. One thing I do want to say is JRTC is a wonderful program that I've been in ever since the 9th grade. A few of my leaders can tell you how much I've grown, not only in that program, but in the Air Force Auxiliary. I think the military is a wonderful lifestyle. It's something I never thought I would be in, but I wanted to be in. And I thank God I have the opportunity not only to meet people, but that I will be like them one day. I thank everyone in the room, including my mom and my father who's on the way. My mom, please stand up.
Totally wrong.
I also thank my SAI and my DAI. Would you both please stand? Colonel Leonard from Jim Hill and Colonel Williams from Jim Hill. And I also want to thank my boys State Director, Mr. Cortez Moss, who's sitting in the back. All of these are great individuals, along with my aunties, uncles that are in the room, that have helped pave the way. And I just want to say thank you to everyone again.
Awesome.
There's more. Oh. Our next honoree is Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Ariane Husky, a senior at Northwest Rankin High School. Cadet Husky is currently serving as Battalion Commander of Northwest Rankin High School's Army Junior ROTC program. As Battalion Commander, she is a senior ranking cadet over 154 cadets. She has also served as Drill Commander and Platoon Sergeant. She is currently involved in speech and debate, having earned the degree of distinction. She is also ranked nationally in that activity. She serves as academic team co-captain, as well as the co-president and co-founder of the Multicultural Club. She's a member of the National Honor Society, Mu Alpha Theta, and Beta Club. She has served on Rankin Youth Leadership, and during her summers, she attended JROTC Cadet Leadership Challenge. Leader State at Mississippi State, and this past summer attended the Mississippi Governor's School. Cadet Husky received the AP Scholar Award for her scores on the AP U.S. History, AP English 3, and AP Chemistry test. She is a National Merit Commended Scholar for her score on the PSAT. Cadet Husky has received the American Legion Academic Excellence Award and the Superior Cadet Award. She is a former member of the academic and leadership teams, and she is a member of the Northwest Rankins Team Bully Free. Cadet Husky is ranked number 4 in her class of 395 students with a cumulative grade point average of 4.0 and an ACT score of 34.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Also, she currently has over 200 community service hours volunteering her time in the community. After graduation, Cadet Husky plans to attend Tulane University and pursue a degree in mathematics. Congratulations, Cadet Husky, on your outstanding accomplishments.
My parents, one Husky, a different my stepfather, I wouldn't do that to
And our final recognition today will be the Mde Employee of the Month. This month's theme is Outstanding Customer Service, and this month's employee is Tamara Kendrick. Tamara, you can come forward. Tamara is an Administrative Assistant 3 in the Office of Child Nutrition. She always maintains a friendly demeanor in person and on the phone. Tamara exhibits a genuine desire to help in her daily interactions with all MDE staff and school districts. She's a team player and exemplifies this during the busiest of times in the year. She assists all areas of the Child Nutrition Division and goes the extra mile in helping requests get to the appropriate area. Staff are always able to count on her assistance throughout the office with districts, audits, reviews, and many more departmental activities. She's a great coworker who brings joy and encouragement to all around her with her acknowledgement of birthdays or other special events. Thank you, Tamara, for your dedication and willingness and for motivating colleagues to give their best each day in service to our districts and students. Congratulations on being named the Department of Education's Employee of the Month. For the month.
Thank you. Wow, man.
I know.
So proud of you guys. You really make us proud every time we have this opportunity to recognize some of our outstanding secondary students. It's just great. Okay, we'll now move on to the report of the State Superintendent.
Sure. Good morning. Before I get started, I wanted to draw your attention to what's in your packet because you're going to need some of these items. Some of them are FYI. The first thing that you'll see, you've got a little card attached to this, is the Literacy-Based Promotion Act Communication Resources. We have prepared these resources for all of our schools and communities. These are also on our website, so we thought you might be interested in seeing exactly what that looks like, and all these links when you go on our website are live, so people can download any of these resources at their local schools. The next thing that you have is a policy update from NASB. I thought it was very important for us to see this. Mississippi is recognized in this policy update, and this has to deal with the growth of our lowest performing students in our accountability model. So we are highlighted in this national publication. The next thing that I think is, I found this article in the New York Times. I'm a New York Times geek on Sunday. And the beautiful part of this is called Reading Taught the Wrong Way. Well, that's not us. This is absolutely validating that reading is being taught the right way in Mississippi. And actually, Kelly Butler's research study is also cited in here. She was really cute. I sent her a text message and I said, just so you know, you're being cited in the New York Times. And she sent back, well, you're in the Clarion Ledger, and I thought, not quite the same thing as the New York Times, but thanks. Yeah. No offense intended. The next thing that you're going to see is I did an op-ed in Education Week, and so you'll see that it's kind of on a landscape. I really recognize the teacher voice and how much emphasis we're putting on teacher voice in Mississippi, some of our teacher leadership initiatives, etc. So Education Week published this. The next single sheet of paper that you have at the last meeting, the department had been asked, how can we enhance the accountability task force? And so we've given you a bulleted piece there to let you know that we responded and how transparent this whole process is going to be. And then the last two things that you have, actually three, you've got 3 PowerPoints that are going to be used today. So when these come up on your items, you've got one on the ACT results, you've got one on kindergarten readiness results, and then you've got one that addresses the differences between ESEA and ESSA. So we'll draw your attention to that when the time comes. So I want to start out with some very big news with Mississippi. And we are pleased that Todd Klunk from the Kellogg Foundation could be with us today. Mississippi has received over a $4 million grant that the department, the Office of Teaching and Leading, is going to be using to increase the number of teachers that we have that are trying to address our teacher shortage. Mr. Moss, if you want to come up, and Mr. Klunk, if you'd stand, I really want to recognize you. There he is. So he represents the Kellogg Foundation and is one of the program people that works with us. And Kellogg has just been such a powerful partner for us. So thank you so much. It was also, if you remember, due to the Kellogg Foundation that we received the grant that we received for early childhood as well. So Kellogg has been very, very generous to us, and this has the potential for increasing the number of teachers that we don't have across our state. In fact, I found a statistic that was given to the state. I attended the Education Achievement Council, and that is a council that is representative from IHL, the community colleges, private universities, legislators are on that, K-12 has a seat, etc. And as they were going through a lot of their stats, the stat that jumped out at me was within the past 5 years, the number of education candidates graduating from our universities has dropped by 40%. So this is huge for Mississippi. So we knew we needed to do something in a proactive way in order to try to get that. So I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Moss and let him explain in brief what the 2 major initiatives that we have that are moving forward. So Mr. Moss, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Wright. If you'll turn your attention to the board, just offered a little context before we move into our second slide. In August of 2018, the board asked that we do a study of the teacher shortage. Since then, we've been working very strategically to implement strategies, particularly those strategies that were outlined in our meeting in September around increasing the teacher pool. So since then, we've launched an initiative to really increase the number of qualified teachers entering and remaining in the profession, and we're doing that through 2 ways, and that is a teacher residency model and then the performance-based licensure model. The teacher residency model will place teacher candidates in the classrooms of highly skilled national board certified teachers for 2 years and cover the full cost of their tuition while enrolled at an institution of higher learning. And so we got a $4.1 million grant to do that. And the performance-based licensure model will look at those educators who've gotten strong and outstanding results with kids over the last couple of years while serving with a provisional license and create a pathway for them to be licensed. And this is really focused on our achievement gaps in high poverty, high minority schools, and schools that lack a diverse teaching staff. So what we endeavor to do is by August of 2022, we'll have 105 residency fellows and 105 performance-based fellows that will give us 210 additional teachers in the Educator pipeline in Mississippi. We'll be partnering with 4 districts who've been identified by Kellogg and 3 institutions of higher learning. Those institutions have not been named at this time, as that we're going through a rigorous request for proposal process that they will be submitting over the next few months. And we're collaborating with the National Council of Teacher Residencies and other states who are launching teacher residency programs. This is not just a Mississippi initiative, this is a national initiative. And I just want to end by saying Mississippi would tremendously be on the cutting edge of human capital pipelines, as if we could be the first state to implement a licensure pathway that is aligned to student outcomes rather than licensure exams. So thank you. Dr. Wright, and we're excited about this work in the Office of Teaching and Leading.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Hats off to the folks.
Quick question. Any legislative changes that would be required to make sure that these folks are being licensed?
At this point, we do not need to make any changes to current state law, but we do have some proposals that we've been working with that might need to down the road. During this opportunity, we want to learn about the pipeline and grow from that. But at this time, the short answer is no.
Dr. I'm getting ahead. I know we got a subcommittee meeting, but there'll be some reports along those lines in the subcommittee. Okay. Thanks.
The other thing I want to just say, about this residency program, there was just an article that was just in the paper this past week. California is investing $75 million into this teacher residency program. So as a nation, we are suffering from teacher shortage, and so this is one way that we can try to increase it in Mississippi, but other states are facing the same thing. Thank you, Mr. Moss. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I attended the Gulf Coast Education Initiative Consortium, which exists. They sponsor a new teacher conference every year. And let me read you the districts and then talk to you about what they've done. So the following districts have put this together: Bay Waveland, Columbia, Forest County Agricultural High School, Forest County School District, George County, Gulfport, Hancock County, Hattiesburg Public Schools, Jackson County, Lamar County, Moss Point, Ocean Springs, Pass Christian, Pearl River, Petal, Philadelphia, Poplarville, Scott County, and Vicksburg Warren. And what they've done, they asked me to come down and meet with a group of second-year teachers. There were 300 first-year teachers in that room. And each of those districts paid for their substitutes so that they could come. It's an all-day meeting. And they get feedback from the teachers each year on what do they feel that they needed as first-year teachers, but they provided a panel of second-year teachers, and so the first-year teachers were able to ask them questions around issues that they were currently facing. And the one that kind of stuck out in my mind, this first-year teacher said, she was a high school teacher, and she said, you know, I'm on a block schedule, and I've got a 90-minute period, and I planned this amazing lesson, and it was over in 5 minutes. And she says, now what do I do? And so it was those kinds of things. They go in with the best of intentions, but the rest of the day, other than that, the professional development that was provided by principals from those districts, superintendents from those districts, and it's all based on their feedback. So if it was a time management, then time management was there. If it was lesson planning or classroom management, then that was there. So hats off to these districts. In fact, the superintendent that was there in attendance but had not, just to find out about it, is Eddie Payzant from Starkville, Oktibbeha, and he said, I want to go back up to my colleagues now and find out how can we replicate that in the northern part of the state. So hats off to those districts that did that, you know, right off the bat. I also was on Paul Gallo again, since I've seen you last, and also was honored to be invited to recognize Senator Gray Tollison and the Oxford Superintendent Brian Harvey as champions for the campaign for grade level reading. And so hats off to those two gentlemen. Met with my Superintendent's Advisory Council. Great discussion around focusing on classrooms, focusing on what's happening, focusing on the good news and everything that's happening in Mississippi, and how can we continue that conversation and get that conversation pushed out. I was pleased to introduce Dr. Peggy Carr, who is the Assistant Commissioner for the Education Commission. Let me get this right. Thank you. Help me. Somebody help me. Education. I should have written that out. Thank you, Nathan. The National Center for Educational Statistics. Thank you, Nathan. And they're the ones that oversee NAEP. And so her entire presentation was around all of Mississippi's data and saying she's never seen something like this happen this consistently with a state before. Dr. Kelly was there, Mr. Bailey was there, Mr. Franklin was there, and it was really refreshing. And then she threw up a slide I'd never seen, so I've asked for her slide deck, where Mississippi would be in the rank of countries in terms of performance. So that was an eye-opening piece too about actually how high would we be ranking in amongst countries. So I'll get that one for you when I get back. And also I attended Desoto's Blue Ribbon Award at Center Hill Middle School up in Desoto. An unbelievable school with lots of amazing things happening. But the part that's so impressive, it was such a community event. It was held outside. And you had 300 or 400 kids that were standing there. Not a word, I mean, not a peep during the entire ceremony. The mayor was there, the police chief was there, parents were there, the aldermen were there, senator was there, and it was just a great celebration for a school that's won a blue ribbon. So really, really pleased about that. And for recognition, I want to recognize Dr. Kelly, because Dr. Kelly was honored at the MASA conference by receiving the Friend of Education Award. So Dr. Kelly, on behalf of the department, and I'm sure your colleagues, congratulations to you. Last but not least, I told you that I'd been out visiting Mansdale Upper Elementary in Madison County, and as I was being escorted around the building by their amazing principal, I said, you know what, I need to send somebody out here to be videotaping some of the stuff that's going on. They've got an amazing robotics program that's focused on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and they are using robotics to help prepare children for jobs of the future. So the school got a grant from Nissan to purchase robotics equipment. And do you pronounce it VEX IQ, or is it is VEX? Okay, it was just the letters, VEX IQ kits. So students compete in VEX IQ competitions, not only within the school, but among other schools. So this past Saturday, the school's 5th grade robotics team competed with 21 other elementary and middle school teams at the VEX IQ Next Level competition and earned the Excellence Award, which is the highest award presented at any VEX IQ challenge. You're going to see in this video that it's not only challenging, but it's very fun, and students get an opportunity to practice the kinds of things that you want people to hire. Problem solving, teamwork, planning, communication, leadership. And I want to introduce the folks that are here from Mansdale and honor them today. Unfortunately, their superintendent could not be here, but the deputy superintendent or assistant superintendent, Edith Mitchell, is here. Edith, you want to stand? Jennifer Richardson, who is the Madison Career Center and District Robotics Coordinator. Deborah Houghton, who's the principal at Mansdale Upper Elementary and also happens to be the president of the Mississippi Association of Elementary School Principals. Kim Landry, 5th grade gifted teacher. Sarah Noble, 4th grade gifted teacher. And was Connie Rissinger able to be here? Not yet. All right, so let's play. And they've not seen the video, so now you get to see how you're being honored today. Let's roll the video.
I wrote a grant to Nissan because we're really fortunate in Madison County to have Nissan, and they fund grants all the time, and it was my first grant I ever have written, and we ended up getting $5,000 for the robotics program, and we ordered 16 VEX IQ kits. We have been very successful at Mansdale Upper in robotics. Our first competition, we had 3 weeks to prepare and build and program, learn how to drive the robots, and we had a 5th grade team that was able to qualify for nationals after only 3 weeks of having the kits. We have also been very blessed to have a teacher. Her name is Kim Landry. She's our 5th grade robotics coach, and she's been doing robotics for 4 years now. And she was named National Robotics Teacher of the Year for the United States. And so that's a good thing, not only for our school, but for Mississippi to start becoming a technological giant.
In our robotics class, we are, the kids are working together, they're planning, strategizing, they, make decisions as a team. It's not just one person, in any aspect of it. They work together and, they hold each other accountable.
Today at Mansdale Upper Elementary, we had 24 teams just at this school that were competing. And they're doing mini tournaments where we can kind of fit it in. It's a nice, quick way for them to do some competition. So they did matches today. They did 4 qualification matches. The ideal is that they'll once a month do this same little mini tournament. So we'll have 3 of these little mini tournaments, and then we'll have the championship.
In the cafeteria is the queuing area. Basically, it's purgatory for robots, and they just basically are waiting their turn. But while they're doing that, they have to meet up with the other team that they're paired with. They have no control over which team they're paired with. So they find out which team they are paired with for each match, and then they have to make a strategy with that team.
So in this world, when we're getting packages delivered by machines, right? It's not the same standard as it used to be, and so we need to look at different ways of looking at things. So adding that creativity aspect, but also working with someone and learning how to build something better is just such a great opportunity for students, as opposed to just the standard way of how we've done things. And so STEM kind of helps look at a situation from multiple angles instead of just one specific way to do things. When I went in there watching them practice, they're telling each other what to do. Come on, and they're cheering each other on. That's what you want to see. And you can do that in other arenas besides sports. And there are kids that can do that aren't necessarily athletically inclined. We do a great job with that in sports, but we leave out a segment of kids that we're now being able to reach.
Well, in my classroom, I see students' communication skills developed through robotics. Robotics also involves leadership and teamwork and problem solving.
My favorite part of robotics is developing strategies to help my team win. Sometimes it's challenging when your remote doesn't, like when you're trying to go for it and turn right, it goes left. Sometimes it's confusing the way you're standing on the outside of the field.
One of my favorite parts of doing robotics at the elementary level is they come to us and everybody's excited. There's no preconceived stereotypes involved with the children. I mean, I've got just as many girls that want to build and drive as I do boys, and our hope is that as they move into the middle school and high school, that this continues for them and that we see an increase in girls that are involved.
The program to me is a way for kids to express themselves and just feel like they have something that is amazing that they can do. I have learned that people can come together to create amazing teams and build what they think is right. I love my team. They've really inspired me and helped me and did everything that they can do to help me, and I really appreciate that.
We see it as an essential piece of their learning, and we just see that it's really progressing them and getting them ready for the real world. I mean, the science, technology, engineering, and math, those are the jobs of the future, and we want our kids to be ready for those.
So congratulations to you folks. You're doing an amazing job, and I can empathize with that little person. When my remote doesn't work, it upsets me too. So, but thank you for what you're doing on behalf of our children, and just amazing things that are happening. And Principal, you should just be so incredibly proud. So, but thanks for being here. And that concludes my report.
So, I was surprised. $5,000. First of all, congratulations on that. But you've done a lot with kind of not that much money. I mean, the impact that you had is amazing. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for that report. I have no report as the chair, so we'll just Move on to item 8. There were subcommittee meetings. I know, and then Dr. M. Who wants to go first? Dr.
M. Yesterday afternoon at 1:30, Mr. Franklin and I met with the Academic Achievement Subcommittee, and Dr. Oakley provided us the results of the kindergarten readiness assessment and ACT. I'm not going to say any more about that because, as you know, that's in the folder here that you will be reviewing with Dr. Wright and Dr. Oakley a bit later in the meeting. Then at 3:30, the Educator Quality Subcommittee, which consists of Mrs. Rye and myself, met with Dr. Murphy and Mr. Moss. And first thing we did was Mr. Moss shared with us the exciting news about the Kellogg grant and how we're going to implement those wonderful dollars that Kellogg Foundation has invested in MDE with the residency program. Then we talked next about the strategies the Office of Teaching and Learning are putting into place to address teacher shortage with the 2019 Mississippi legislatures. Now, at this point, I don't know that we need to go into any detail. You kind of said, "Are you going to talk more about it?" And I said, "Well, yeah, but I'm not prepared for a presentation of exactly what those strategies are."
The reason I asked the question is if there are things that we need to be doing to affect legislative change, you know, it's the time now to go ahead and get in line for that. That's the only reason I brought it up. And if there's no requirements required for Title 37 change, then
well, I think that it's always well to speak with your personal legislator and tell them that, you know, we're going to be, we, MDE, it's a big we, I don't do much for company
royal
meetings,
we,
are going to be asking them to make appropriations for us to address the teacher shortage in Mississippi and to also award our teachers for their very hard work in improving Mississippi, getting us off the bottom, that we would like to see them rewarded with increase in salaries. So that's the message in a nutshell. Pete will be working with Mr. Bennett and Senator Tolleson to prepare legislation. I mean, they've already started working with them. They're well informed about what is being sought. It's just a matter of getting all the pieces together. Okay, and then we also discussed, excuse me, Mr. Moss and Dr. Murphy and I attended a meeting in Chicago regarding the diversity among our teaching force, and also about incorporating cultural responsiveness in all classrooms. It was a meeting that was sponsored by CCSSO, and we shared with Mrs. Rye our learnings on diversity and cultural responsiveness, and I think you'll be hearing more and more about that. It's something that we as the subcommittee on educator quality want to bring to the forefront.
Chairman, the Accountability Subcommittee did meet this morning, had a really good discussion around the 2017-2018 ACT test scores. You'll see those later today, and I think you will be pleasantly pleased with how Mississippi compared to the national average, what's happened on a national average and what happened in Mississippi. I won't say any more about that. You'll get that result. There was also a discussion on the federal and state accountability model and the requirements of that under ESSA. We're going to have a couple of items today on the agenda that pertains to this. You'll also see a PowerPoint presentation that I hope will make things clear for us in terms of making decisions later today. We saw the results of the 2018 kindergarten readiness. Again, Mississippi did really well, so I think you'll be pleased with the results of that you'll see. Last month, we brought to you a policy on student representation on our board. That went out for APA. The results came back. Very, very minor suggested changes. We took a look at that, and it did accept a couple of the changes that came out of that. We took actions on actually approving an ad hoc screening committee that's going to be reviewing the application for student representation on the board. Ms. Altman has agreed to represent the board on that ad hoc committee. There was also an application process developed by staff. We took a look at that for student representation, that is, and we authorized staff to go on and use that as the official application process. So we had a really, really good meeting.
Okay. Any other subcommittees? Oak. We'll now get into the discussion of our board items. First action item, approval of updated Mississippi Board of Education strategic plan. Dr. Wright?
Yes. The leadership team has worked for the past couple of months wanting to make sure that what you have in front of you are the most current strategies, outcomes, et cetera, that we have been working on, continue to work on, et cetera. You have two documents in front of you. The one, if you kind of open it and flip through it, that's got a lot of the highlights, will let you know where most of the major revisions were made. Goal 4 particularly has undergone a lot of revision and some additional outcomes added, and Goal 5 has gone through some major revisions as well. So I thought the best way to do this would be to take this goal by goal to see if you had any questions about it, rather than going through an entire presentation, goal 1 through 6. So that was the reason we gave it to you last month, which would give you a month to take a look at it. So at this time, we're going to take this goal by goal, and if you've got any questions that you have related to goal 1, Dr. Oakley, could you come to the table? And we've also got additional staff here. So any questions that you have related to goal 1?
I don't have a question, and I already mentioned this to Dr. Oakley, but I would like to reinforce what I suggested. Several of these strategies are really things that are already underway. And so instead of saying, for example, the first one, provide intensive literacy professional development, I think it should read continue to, because you don't know whose hands this might get into. And I don't want them to think that we haven't already got things made in that regard. And that applies to several of the strategies. They're already underway, so it needs to say continue to.
Anything else under goal 1? Yeah. Sure.
Yes, sir.
All right, how about under goal 2? Outcome 2? Sure.
How, not open that, but we need to work on how we get more of our kids that can meet the ACT benchmark also.
The mic just a little closer to you, Mr. Franklin. Thank you. That's okay. We're just live streaming, so we want everybody to hear you.
Sorry.
That's right.
But when our kids get into the colleges and et cetera, if they're not prepared, and as ACT is the best indicator of whether they're prepared or not, the better we can do when they get there, then the better they're going to do once they're there. Because if they, and we don't have the follow-up data yet, but we're going to work on that. I think we talked yesterday about, looking at kids who do meet all four of those, how do they perform at the community colleges and IHL institutions? So that data would really help a lot. But we just need to do, and we talked about that yesterday, doing everything we can to get more of those kids that meet all four of those benchmarks.
And I think Dr. Oakley, when we get to the ACT results, is going to speak to a couple of things that you've just spoken to, because we've been working with ACT around how do we do that, and Dr. Oakley's got some ideas for you at the end. All right, anything else on goal 2?
Objective 2, I simply say again, professional development is a key. What we've been doing, most of professional development has been directed at the teacher and the administrative level, but counselors on. And one thing we talked to Link about yesterday was getting young people to understand that it's okay to want to get CTE certification to going into the workforce. That the only objective is not a baccalaureate.
Right.
It's a societal issue that we have to address. It's an educator issue that we need to address, and we've already covered that yesterday. But again, I think professional development and what we're doing there is.
Anything else on objective 2? All right, objective 3, around early childhood. Every child has access to high quality early childhood programming.
Number 3, expand the number of Title I funded pre-K programs with an emphasis on low performing schools. That's a great.
Yes, outcome 4.
Still promises me that they're going to fund all those. So.
Goal 4.
Mine's really just a comment. I was reading under where the letters training was going to be required, and I literally did a happy dance in my bedroom when I was reading that. I did that training when it first came out, and as an educator, that was the most profound professional development I've ever had. It impacted my classroom. I came back to my school district, said, please take this, please send teachers, and almost our whole school district and elementary ed that do the lower elementary has done it, and we see a huge impact in our instruction. So I feel like placing that there will make a big impact as well. So great job.
Anything else under? Yes,
yes.
Dr.
Well, I just in general want to acknowledge, congratulate, give accolades to Dr. Murphy and Mr. Moss and Dr. Burson for, they have totally revamped the outcomes and the strategies that are under Goal 4, and I think that they deserve recognition for all the hard work that they have put in, and I think they're going to really advance us in moving forward on addressing the quality of educators in Mississippi. So I'm very proud of that.
Thank you. As am I. Thank you. All right. I'm sorry. Sure. Still on 4. Yes, sir.
On strategies under objective 2 there, I had you hear me all the time talking about teachers and all that. I'd like to see us work on or look at changing the paradigm of teachers and what we do with them. They're kind of, even on the information things, the information our teachers get is filtered through different layers and all. I'd like to see us make teachers become more involved in the decision-making part of the process, not just implementing what's passed down to them, but get the teachers involved in the decision-making process on the front side. It's an age-old thing. This, most teachers, they're prepared and they go out and they're delighted. They close that door and they go and do what they're taught to do, and they do a super job in that.
We've got 2.
We are.
Yeah, we are.
I was about to say, the department, I've seen quite a few instances where they've injected teachers into the subcommittees that, in fact, a lot of the initiatives that come to the board, teachers have been a part of those work groups. But I agree with you, it is important that we continue to do that.
I'm not speaking just what we do from this standpoint. I'm talking about everyday life in every school in the state. You know, when kids come to when they enter kindergarten, you know, in most cases, and I'm not saying all, please, most or a lot, and through experience, you got 100 kindergartners, you got 5 teachers, 20 here, 20 here, 20 here, and we've got data now. Back on looking at early childhood, we got data now through those assessments. And if we could take our kindergarten teachers with their building level administrators and all and sit down and analyze those children, the weaknesses and all.
You're talking about at the school level, encouraging everywhere. Okay, okay.
To our level, and I agree with it. We've made an effort to do that. But I'm just saying at the school level too, it's not just, because that's where the work takes place every day. And let them be involved in you know, assigning the kids, but then designing and implementing the strategies to correct the deficiencies once they get there. So.
Okay. Anything else on goal 4? Okay, goal 5 is using data effectively. This one has totally been redone. Any questions on goal 5?
No, but I think during the time that I've been on the board, we've seen us move light years into using data. I mean, from like 0 to 100. So,
one thing I'd like to, I don't know how, again, I'm just, this has been a goal of ours from the beginning, you know, and there's been a strategic plan just in the technology area here to do, and we've needed a little bit of money, in my opinion, a little bit, to really accelerate this. And it seems like we just never can quite get that money. I don't know what we got to do, but whatever it is, if we let's please make that a priority.
Well, it's been a request that we've had with the legislature every year, and it will continue to be a request because it's not going to take that much money to really overhaul this, and so we're going to continue to push with that this session.
Amount of money, yes, ma'am, but it touches every child,
Absolutely.
every district out there.
Absolutely. Got some suggestions nobody wants to hear.
A year or so ago, Dr. Dean chaired a subcommittee that was developing dashboards to make it easier to see and discern the data. Is anybody, now that you're chair, is anybody else doing that work, Dr. Dean?
There's a program that we developed that's going to do it.
So the question is, what are we doing on dashboards? Is that sort of a fair
visualization?
Yeah.
Right. So in the past, there's been effort under the auspices of the SLDS grant, or State Longitudinal Data Systems grant, to develop dashboards for the state. Early effort was made to build out an infrastructure and stand up some internal dashboards. We leverage that infrastructure to stand up the Mississippi Succeeds report card, which you all saw last month. And so Dr. Wright and I have had conversations along with the ELT and then the OTSS staff about how to begin to build further public-facing dashboards. And so we have a list of priorities that Dr. Wright and I have sort of honed, I suppose, over the last couple months, including heat maps, including turning the internal dashboards and finding the secure, not a secure, but a sort of a PII protecting public-facing version of those dashboards. So we've got a lot of the pieces built behind the scenes, and so with the Mississippi Succeeds report card out and with some lists of items to improve those, we're going to continue to roll out additional dashboards and again leverage the investment that has been made so far. So we hope to be able to share with you all on a rolling basis new either improvements to what you've already seen or additional dashboards that we're able to stand up. So there's a lot of energy behind this, and we are putting together a detailed plan for the SLDS program office in DC how we are going to leverage the last year or two of the grant. We have a year left, and we'll likely have the opportunity for no-cost extension for an additional 5th year. So we have that roadmap we're putting in place today, and we'll hopefully have that submitted this month to the feds, and once they sign off on it, that we can begin to execute against it.
I've seen some mock-ups of things that we think are going to be very helpful. And so we, like he said, it's kind of all been behind the scenes. We haven't really been talking about it a lot, but the Mississippi Succeeds report card was really the first big salvo in that area. But then now we've got a whole list of things that we're working on behind the scenes as well.
One thing I would just say is that the more you get out, the more demand and hunger you get for it. It's sort of we should build demand and pressure for that, which is a great place for us to be in, and then just our goal is to continue to meet those expectations.
And the last goal is goal 6. Any questions around goal 6?
It doesn't have to happen today, but I would be interested in learning more about CB strategy number 7 under objective 1.
Oh, okay. I know exactly. Nathan, do you want to talk about that briefly? It's the interview protocol that we are using for our lowest performing schools and school boards.
So for the last couple of years, we have transitioned from a review process where the department went into individual schools and worked alongside the school to develop a plan and then push toward implementation for school improvement to more of a district-led or school-led plan. This is in alignment with kind of the expectations of ESSA that school improvement has to happen at the local level. There's got to be local buy-in, local leadership in that process. And so starting, I guess, 2 years ago, we finished our 2nd year. We're about to start our 3rd year of doing this. The interview process is one where we push a template out to districts. We do training with them. The School Improvement Office is hosting a conference this week, in fact, in Vicksburg, with schools that were identified for school improvement that walks through what that planning process should look like. What are those expectations? What are the requirements there? And what are the supports in place for them? But that interview process is one where we give the districts kind of a list of questions or expectations we want them to respond to, and then those individual schools, in cooperation with a teacher, principal, a parent, a board member, the superintendent, federal programs director, a cross-agency from inside the district's team, puts together a plan to address their deficiencies, and we ask very pointed questions about what their data reflect, about their expenditures and how they're tied to the expected outcomes that we're wanting to see. But that interview process is one where we get planning from them, we give them feedback, and then they submit additional edits to their plan before we approve them. That helps them at the local level really take ownership of that plan and helps us to ensure that they're the ones focused on implementation and we're there alongside them to help.
I also made a note when I read through this on objective 3, focusing on high schools, and I just wanted to add the comment that based upon the data we've seen, and it doesn't have to be done this year, but eventually I would like to see the same type of approach, making it an objective for looking at what we can do for improvement of middle schools. We seem to consistently see that middle schools seems to be the place that a lot of kids just kind of fall off, and so, and even at high-performing schools, middle school seems to be the big hiccup in the system. Casually, I mean.
And we have a middle school task force that's working right now on this very issue. So I could see us coming back and adding an outcome and strategies particular to that outcome. We're waiting for that group to finish its work and then come back to us with a report and recommendations. So I'm going to be, thank you, Dr. Oakley. I'm going to be providing you an update on the overall progress on the strategic plan as I do every year. That'll either be in December or January. And then so that way you'll have an idea of where we actually are in terms of progress. We've told you what we're planning on doing. And then at that update, you'll find out exactly the status of each of these actions.
Okay, thanks. All right, Dr. Oakley, the next 2 are yours. Begin APA process to revise Mississippi Secondary Curriculum Frameworks in Career and Technical Education, and go ahead and roll to 3, the Mississippi Second Curriculum Framework for
Thank you. We are coming forward today with requests to revise frameworks in item 2. for a number of content areas in the Career Technical Education program. The revisions to these curriculum frameworks are really to align these standards with the appropriate industry standards that may have changed in recent years, also to revise the competency and objectives to meet current industry standard. Would note that Cyber Foundations 1 and 2 are now aligned in this revised version to the recently adopted computer science standards. STEM applications was aligned with the Mississippi College Career Readiness standards for science and for math, as well as the K-12 computer science standards. This work was done in conjunction with the RCU from Mississippi State, as well as a team of CTE educators from across the state. In item 3, we're requesting approval to begin the APA process to establish a new framework for instrumentation technology in career technical education. This curriculum is designed to recognize the needs of 21st century learners, to ensure that we've got a blend of strategies from online and face-to-face instruction that connect to CTE ebooks, online lectures, video presentations, and other content. The instrumentation technology is designed to provide a foundation of knowledge for students who may be seeking employment or continued education in several occupations, such as industrial instrumentation, measurement, welding, or industrial maintenance. This curriculum framework, again, was developed in partnership with the Mississippi Construction Education Foundation and with input from RCU and other educators in the state. One of them was 150 pages with the edits. So it was a massive document to try to provide electronically. We did provide a summary in your backup of what those changes were.
Oh, how difficult it is to get web pages in both.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Dr. Vanderford will do the ACT results update.
Good morning. As Dr. Dean indicated, item 4 is an information item related to the spring of 2018 ACT results. This item is a joint item presented from the Offices of Accountability and Academic Education. In your folder that was provided for you, you have a copy of the presentation that is displayed on the screen. Previously provided in your backup material, you received the statewide results for grade 11 students for the 2017-2018 school year, provided by district and school. So Dr. Oakley at this time will provide you some background information on the ACT throughout this presentation, as well as the grade 11 results with some 3-year trend data and key findings, and then we will move into the ACT data for the graduating class of 2018. You'll also have a 3-year comparison provided there with some information from the public schools, as well as data that includes private schools. We'll also share with you the percent of students that are meeting college and career readiness benchmarks, and we'll close with strategies to improve ACT achievement across the state.
Thank you. And a reminder, the presentation is in your green folder, and there's additional backup with the results in your board mail out folder. So as you're well aware of our vision and mission that you have established for us as a department and kind of driving the work of the state at large, the ACT results really connect to our first 2 board goals related to students showing proficiency and growth and exiting high school ready for both college and career. As we look at the ACT, just contextually, keep in mind that the ACT is an on-demand assessment based on what students learn in high school. It's designed to provide personalized information to them and their families about their strengths. It's also designed to help schools and districts schedule students into subsequent course sequences beyond the time at which they take it. Helps them get a sense of where they have weaknesses and where they might need to work to be ready to attend post-secondary or pursue an opportunity in the workforce. It is designed to be a predictive measure of readiness for college, but is not a specific content measurement performance like our MAP assessment. It is not, in other words, designed to just measure content from an Algebra 1 course connected to our state standards. It's broader content for secondary mathematics. It includes content from pre-algebra all the way up through some limited content in calculus. One of the other pieces I would draw your attention to when we talk about the components of this is that interest inventory that students complete so that the ACT can look at their results and give families a sense of, okay, Dr. Kelly, you took the assessment, you did well in this area, here's some career paths you might want to consider. It also includes, they consider the course patterns when students register for the ACT. They lay out in that online application through the website the courses they've already taken, what their career interests might be. And so it gives more feedback than just scores or results to students. When we look at the results that are reported out, students will get scale scores. It's reported on a 1 to 36 scale. We're familiar with that. And it's broken down into 4 subtests. And there's a composite score that combines these 4 subtests. You can see the benchmark scores in the table at the bottom. The college courses are on the left, and then the corresponding test subset areas in the middle, and then the ACT national benchmark that is an indication at the national level of readiness for entry into a credit-bearing course. What those benchmarks really tell the public or tell students is if I meet that benchmark, I have a 50% chance of getting a B or better in a college course outlined on the left. If I have that sub-score benchmark obtained, I have a 75% chance of getting a C or better in that corresponding college course. So it gives students a sense of where they are with regard to being ready to enter into post-secondary study. So we're going to dive into both, as Dr. Vanderford shared, our 11th grade results from this year, as well as our senior class graduating cohort results from this year, from the 17-18 year. And we'll have some trend data for you to see along the way. So 2017-18 was the 4th year that we administered the ACT to all of our 11th grade students. So in 17-18, there were 572 fewer students that participated than in the prior year. This 11th grade administration is designed to provide information that can inform course selection for high schools, also to inform instructional rigor and strengthen senior course participation for students. And we'll talk a little more about that as we move through the presentation. As we look at the composite scores on the bottom for our juniors over the last 3 years, you can see a slight dip for our junior class from an 18 in the prior year to a 17.8 in the 17-18 school year. We are interested in continuing to work with districts around course sequencing because the junior trend is not what we want to see with a downward trend there. But we do want to keep in mind as we look at our senior results in just a few minutes, our end goal here is for this junior administration to inform what happens senior year, to improve results for ACT for students by the time they graduate, to increase scholarship potential, to increase percentage of students meeting that college benchmark. So there's some mechanisms by which we address that from the state and mechanisms by which districts and schools can address that as well. When we look at the sub-scores and the percentage of students meeting benchmark as juniors, again, these sub-score readiness rates or benchmark scores are tied to likelihood of a student being successful in entry-level college class. You can see the data trends for the last 3 years in blue, green, and yellow, and for each content area outlined across the bottom. You obviously, we have a number of students that will do well in one content area or another. When we start to look at the percentage of students that do well across all 4 areas, it's a much lower percentage than what we want to see. Our statewide percentage for juniors this past administration was at 9% readiness in all 4 areas. We, as I shared, we administer this to our junior class each year, so you cannot do an apples-to-apples comparison from 2017 to 2018. It's a different junior class, different set of students, and a different set of outcomes. Compared to 2017, we did have fewer students assessed, as I'd shared. We did have 54 districts that showed a slight decrease in score, slight increase in score, and 82 that showed a slight decrease in score. 9 of our districts showed no change from the 17 to the 18 junior administration. So we look to our graduating class of 2018, and this is where Dr. Kelly alluded earlier to the positive outcomes that we're seeing as a state compared to what the nation saw at large. We have 2 different reports here. One of the reports, as you see in the top in red, includes both public and private data for the graduating class of 2018. You can see the composite score from 15-16 to 16-17 to 17-18. It increased from 2 years ago, and it remained flat for the 17-18 school year. Mississippi demonstrated level performance for our graduating class, while the nation as a whole saw a slight decline. The national composite was 21, and it dropped. It was 21 in the 16-17 school year, and it dropped in 17-18 to a 20.8. So where the nation declined a little bit, Mississippi remained steady. Dr. Vanderford with a number of other states in the last few weeks talking about ACT and so whether it's statewide, large-scale assessment, accountability, and state reporting kinds of issues. And there are a number of states that saw significant drops in their ACT scores. So for our senior class, for those schools to continue to work with those students, to get them appropriately sequenced into those courses after they've taken that junior year, that's encouraging. That's the kind of progress we want to see, and we'll continue to work with districts to ensure that that's happening. When we look at our public schools only, again, you can see we increased from the 15-16 school year and remained steady for 16-17 to 17-18 with our senior class of graduates. When we look at our trends among subscores and benchmark performance for our graduating class, we see a slight increase and then steadiness in that all four area from over the last 3 years. And so that's again, it's not significant progress. It's a large ship when we're talking about 36,000 students that are taking the assessment. And this includes, again, all of our students across the state. In prior years, prior to 4 years ago, the students that would typically have taken the ACT were your students that said, I want to go to college. I'm of means, I've got an opportunity, my parents went, I want to see this happen. And we administer it statewide now to all of our students, regardless of their background, regardless of whether their parents have attended school post-secondary before or not, regardless of their special education status. It's administered across the state. And that's opened up some doors for students who might not have previously thought, I can make college happen. That might be a reality for me. So when we look at this data, we do know it's going to be a slow shift to change, but we are interested in seeing that work continue. You see percentages here, but just let me draw your attention. These percentages remain the same. When we talk about the number of students in each subject area that are meeting the benchmarks differently than the prior year, we had 533 more graduates in English, 558 more in math, 468 more in reading, and 378 more in science to meet the benchmark than previously. Also, this 2018 graduating class reflects the highest number of students in Mississippi ever who have met the ACT benchmarks in each subject area. We got 17,637 in English, 11,062 in reading, 7,739 in math, and 7,427 in science. So we're encouraged when we start to look at student level data. We often at the department talk about every number's got a face. And when we start to talk about individual students, those numbers add up, but we see slow shifts in the percentages making the progress. Again,
do other states require all juniors or all classes to take the ACT?
There are a number of states that require a junior administration. Last I remember, it was 15 or 20 across the country that require this. I can get you that list. I don't have it offhand. It is not a national requirement. It's not an ESSA requirement. It's a state level decision.
Just a point of progress too, that in that those states that don't require it, then the best of their best are just taking the ACT. So they're taking it multiple times. So when you compare our averages of the states that are making all of a class take a test versus comparing the best of the best taking the test, then the national average looks a little bit different when you compare yourself to it. And
the national average dropped even with that caveat in place.
Questions? Oh, sorry.
No, it's good. So where we're going from here, we will continue to work with districts. Subgroups have been a big point of discussion over the last couple of years. We've lifted that out. We'll continue to do it. We've got to address achievement gaps there. The SREB courses that are in place for our students that are just below those benchmarks, IHLs, post-secondary, will take student grades of 80 or better in these SREB essentials courses. If they have a benchmark score that's just below the requirement, they'll take those students' entry into college with completion of that course in lieu of a remedial course. And so we're reaching back out to districts to remind them of the requirement to offer that class to students. We're looking closely at advanced electives, advanced placement, STEM courses, dual credit opportunities to ensure that students are getting more advanced coursework in their junior and senior year where we can to better prepare them for the more rigorous content and the college kind of look that the ACT provides. The diploma endorsements include some requirements around ACT performance for the endorsement options. And then we believe that our new science standards and courses that look more closely at data use, implementation, and review and analysis line up nicely with some of the expectations on the ACT science assessment. Continuing again to remind districts and communities and parents about the opportunity for them to retake or take the first time early on if they want to, the ACT through a fee waiver option. And then as we talk with districts, we know there are a number of districts in the state that use local funds or other funds to offer students an opportunity to take the ACT either prior to the statewide administration or at some other point in time determined locally, so that students have, again, another shot at taking that assessment at no cost to them, to give them an opportunity to raise that score and potentially qualify for additional scholarships or entry into post-secondary study.
Hopefully, in our subcommittee meeting this morning, you mentioned a couple of best practices that ACT had mentioned that guarantee a better outcome for students in terms of their score testing.
I'll
talk about that.
Yeah, so Mr. Bailey is actually the district practitioner who mentioned that in subcommittee.
Yeah, a couple of practices is to ensure students take upper level electives. That ACT data will tell you that'll raise the score 2 to 4 points. The other thing is multiple opportunities to take the assessment, and that taking that junior assessment, that sophomore assessment, and the junior assessment again shows great gains across the state and across the nation related to those that just take it first-time test takers as a junior. So some best practices that ACT data shows from a national standard will raise those scores.
Of course,
I would hope our district. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I didn't mean to step on you, but I would hope our district would start to employ those best practices so we can see our scores continuously go up.
Talking about our SLD, the State Longitudinal Data System. If we could take and look at the percentage of kids who pass all four, who meet all four benchmarks, and work with the community colleges and IHL folks to see how those kids do, if we could track them out there at some point in time.
I wonder if Life Tracks would keep that data. We might be able to request that from InSpark.
That kind of data is just like we've done with the early child. It would then drive the academic intervention.
Mr. Green?
I would say that the data are there. The question is putting them together and asking the question as you posed it. Dr. Wright and I've talked in terms of dashboards about shaping up feedback reports for high schools, where we could begin to tie together all these various indicators prior to high school with the experiences the students have and their success after high school. So that's on our list of things to pursue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Bailey, I want to go back to the things you mentioned that ACT talked about, the best practices. In your school district, when you have an 11th grader take the test, to look at the results from that and see where the weaknesses are and put some kind of strategy in place to help that student? Or does that student just go back and take it again without any intervention?
We do. We have an ACT coordinator, and we have a person hired in our district to focus specifically on that, as well as ACT classes in our schools. And you can break down strand data related to weaknesses along the way on ACT too, and coach students along the way from a content related as well as strategies in taking the test. Also, as you're phasing into that, to ensure that as they take it to the junior, then they're taking that next upper level elective in that junior and senior year too, that promotes the success on the ACT.
I think that is key. I'll just use a farmer's analysis. I'm a farm boy. You just don't keep weighing the pig. You do something different with the pig.
You have to feed the pig. I grew up on a farm and I know the analogy.
All right.
Okay. Other questions? Okay. Well, let's move on to item 5, and I think 5 and 6 kind of go together. And Dr. Vanford, let me set it up a little bit. I think we will remember at our last board meeting, we deferred the decisions on some of our schools that were treated in one way under ESEA and apparently had a different designation under ESSA. And, you know, just to do our due diligence, we delayed it for at least whatever it was, 3 or 4 weeks to get a better understanding in order to make the decision on what we have to do with these special schools. That, Dr. Vanderford, I would ask you just to kind of review the PowerPoint, and then we'll move on to number 6.
If I might add before I begin item 5 and 6, so we also talked last month about some enhancements to the Accountability Task Force and that process. So in your green folder, we don't have an item designated to that, but there's a one-page document that contains some of the new processes that we'll put in place. And so if you review that and have any comment, if you would let us know, that would be good. Yes, sir.
About this specifically? Okay.
About the one page that she just done.
The first meeting is November the 29th. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Great. As Dr. Dean stated, item 5 is in response to the board's request, and this provides a summary of the federal and state accountability requirements under the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, the Every Student Succeeds Act, and state law. So at this time, you do have a presentation that's a few slides that we'll display on the screen that's in your green folder. Yes, sir. And so if you would like to use that to follow along.
So I'll jump right in. We're going to provide you some context related to state law as well as to the requirements under ESSA. And keep in mind, ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, is the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. So ESEA has been around since 1965. It's been through multiple iterations. No Child Left Behind was the legislation that was in 2001. ESSA replaced No Child Left Behind as the most recent version of that federal law. We're going to start, though, with Mississippi Code 3717.6, speaks to the requirements of the state board through the Department of Ed regarding an accountability system. And beginning in the 11-12 school year, the department was required to implement a ABCDF designation for school and district reporting and classification in accordance with both state and federal law. Further, in that same statute, 3717.6, there was a requirement to revise the accountability system, put into place that single A through F system, and then to discontinue the use of the prior labels you can see in that second sub-bullet that had been in place for a number of years, and ultimately to combine those state and federal models into one federally approved, ultimately, system. Keep in mind there are no exclusions in state law regarding schools with special populations, and that is also in line with ESSA, the lack of exclusion. So let's talk about ESSA and kind of the timeline that got us to where we are now. The law was passed in December of 2015, was reauthorized and voted into place in December of 2015. We started really in earnest in the spring of 16, March. We had a large convening from inside the department across the agency, looking at state laws, looking at board policy, looking at strategic plan, trying to determine the alignment to ESSA as we knew it, and then moved over the course of that year with listening sessions into December, where we had a work session with the board. We also had a number of stakeholder meetings, and not just across the state, but with an advisory group here. The regulation of the law went into place in 2017-18 school year, and so subsequently we ended up with our submission to ED in September of 2017 and approval from ED in March of 2018 of our board-approved plan. We then went forward with the accountability results in recent months in accordance with that requirement that the law be in place for the 2017-18 school year. So under ESSA, we're going to talk about some of the requirements and some of the flexibilities. Under ESSA, we have to assess all students, and we have to include measures of performance that are applied consistently across the state for those student assessments. Each statewide system has to meaningfully differentiate schools, and so it's got to set them apart one from another with regard to their performance. We have to use a single statewide accountability system. We have to include academic proficiency on our statewide assessments. We have to include graduation rates for schools that have a 12th grade. We have to include English language proficiency or progress toward proficiency. We also include another statewide indicator of academic performance for kindergarten through 8th grade schools. For us, that's our growth. We also, in accordance with ESSA, have to include not less than one other state set indicator of school quality or student success. For our purposes, that's a science assessment that we administer in elementary, middle, and high school. We must, under the law, administer the assessment to at least 95% of our students. We've got to have a 95% participation rate in accordance with federal law. There is some flexibility under ESSA related to assessments and innovation. All right, so I want to dig into both of those pieces today. The first of these flexibilities is connected to high school assessments only. All right, there is an option within the law that allows states or LEAs, districts, to use a nationally recognized assessment, such as the ACT, SAT, Cambridge. There's some flexibility there for nationally recognized assessment at the high school level in lieu of a state assessment. But keep in mind there are caveats that go along with that flexibility. So you got flexibility and then guardrails that don't allow you to work outside of the guardrails. So these assessments have to be, first of all, aligned to the state's academic standards. The assessments have to provide results that can be used for accountability for that meaningful differentiation. The assessments have to meet all of the technical requirements that apply to our statewide assessment system. And then these LEA selected assessments must be approved by the state and have to go through a peer review process at the federal level with a USDE appointed committee and then subsequently approved by the U.S. Department of Ed. I would tell you that on the high school assessment front, I do not know of any high school assessments under this flexibility at this point that have been approved for long-term use. There have been some states that got a one-year opportunity to use ACT or SAT or another assessment, but they did that with a view toward eventual peer approval or with a view toward they've got to do an alignment study and go through that peer review and determine alignment to their standards. They've got, they're in a position where a contract ended, they're using this for a year, and they're going out for RFP for a contract for a statewide assessment. But at this point, we're not aware of any states that have received long-term approval for the use of these nationally recognized assessments. The second flexibility that's allowed under ESSA is what's called an innovative assessment pilot. All right, and this is designed for the Secretary of Education to approve up to 7 states that want to experiment with other assessment programs or formats. Some states are exploring like a competency-based assessment where I test a student early on, determine if they have the content, and I move them forward rather than having them sit through the course and the assessment. Or a performance-based assessment that measures progress over time potentially. Like Louisiana, for instance, is conducting an assessment where they're integrating social studies and some English language arts reading skills together and administering that over time, over the course of the year to students. But they are doing that, if you look at that first sub-bullet, not just in one district, but in a number of districts with a view toward statewide implementation or discontinuation of use. All right, so this is not a pilot that would be designed just to put into place in a handful of districts and leave it there. This is designed to scale up to statewide implementation if it's successful or pull back if it's not. The pilot requires quality criteria, also safeguards. It requires the alignment to the state standards and potentially that eventual statewide implementation. There is an option within the law that would allow the Secretary to expand to more than 7 states over time. Currently, we only know of Louisiana and New Hampshire that have been approved under this particular model.
Those 2 states that they've been approved, and that is their accountability model. There's only one for the entire state. And
they have a statewide model, but then they have this innovative assessment pilot where they're rolling these assessments out.
The ultimate goal is to have the innovative assessment take over the entire state and get rid of what they currently have in favor of this.
Or to pull back if it doesn't work. Yes, sir.
Okay. Questions?
Item 6 is seeking approval of the unofficial 2017-2018 accountability results for the Corinth School District and 3 schools within the district and 4 schools with special populations. So as we've previously discussed, in 2016, the MDE and the Corinth School District
began the initial phases of developing a modified accountability system. However, in April of 2018, the MDE determined that the modified accountability system was not allowable under ESSA or state law, and therefore in June notified the district. On August the 16th of 2018, the State Board of Education granted a temporary rule and approval to begin the APA process to revise the business rules of the Mississippi Statewide Accountability System to assign a grade classification to all schools in accordance with Mississippi Code 3717-6 and the Every Student Succeeds Act, effective for the 17-18 school year. And in addition, as previously stated in the presentation, there are no exclusions in federal or state law for the assignment of grades to schools that have special populations. So therefore, it is recommended that the State Board approve the unofficial 2017-2018 accountability results for the Corinth School District, for Corinth High School, for Corinth Middle School, for Corinth Elementary School, the Harrison County Child Development Center, the Pascagoula Gaucher Exceptional School, the Mississippi School for the Blind, and the Mississippi School for the Deaf.
Those grades are all behind your tab there. 6. Questions? Okay, thank you. Yep.
So what we have done, the state law that set up the innovative school district, we might as well throw that out, right?
So
let me do, I'm sorry, I'll stop. Because if you look at the presentation that we've got about our strategic plan, there's a desire to have more students take like AP exams, the Cambridge exams, etc., to have more districts become districts of innovation. And we entered into an agreement, the state board and the department entered into an agreement with Corinth School District and gave it flexibility through state law to get to where we are today. And now we're saying, oops, all that's off. When ESSA says there's flexibility in it. So why are we still talking about innovation? Because if you look at the Tupelo Daily Journal, Tupelo, I don't know of anybody else, but Tupelo is talking openly about wanting to become an innovative school district. Why would they want to do that if they're going to have to, what's it going to do any good, to become an innovative school district if they're going to be assessed just like everybody else, reported just like everybody else, etc. And the state law was created, and we asked districts and celebrated districts to think outside the box, become creative, challenge students, etc. And now, what are we doing? We're just saying, oops. Like we do in a lot of the other accountability issues. Oops, let's reset these
Question? Is there a question?
All right, let me ask you this too. We talk most about Corinth right now. Let's shift. What about like School for the Blind and the Deaf? There can be no exceptions made for those folks?
No.
There's not an exception under the law to assign a grade to schools with special populations. One topic that did come up with the Commission on School Accreditation recently, just in their conversation, was a look, and Dr. Vanderford had a similar discussion recently with some other states, was a look at how those grades are assigned for those special population schools. There is some flexibility for how those designations are made. The federal government doesn't care about A through F assignment. They want a single accountability model across the state. So there I imagine will be at some point some more discussion with the task force about, for those schools that are special population schools, what that might look like with regard to the designation of labels. But that, again, we would potentially be looking at a technical amendment to state law, because it also says a single A through F system.
Part of our looking through the process of looking at evaluating our current accountability system and offering changes to that. Could that be a part of that discussion about these special schools of innovation, districts of innovation? Like the children who attend and the faculty and staff in that community at School for the Blind and Deaf, they've got enough challenges as it is without us taking and saying, oops, we're going to hang another little thing around your neck. It's called an F.
federal law.
I start saying,
I mean,
well,
it's not like
state law
we're
is
not, the
part-
board is not, doing that. We're following federal law. And I would just make a comment on the District of Innovation issue. We're not, the last thing I want it to be, reported that the board has any intention to throw a wet blanket on the development of that. I've already reached out to people I know in Tupelo and said, if I can come up there and help you and encourage you to do that. The issue is we had a convergence of the change in the federal law from ESEA to ESSA at the time that one district was pursuing, in partnership with the department, in good faith efforts partnership, where we were working with them, and when the law changed, we had to change too, and that's what came out through all this. So it was unfortunate for that one district, but let's not throw Gulfport and Vicksburg and Baldwin and Boonville and all the others that want to do this kind of in that same bucket. I think what they're doing is tremendous, and the reports that I hear are amazing. So I don't want to, let it be known that just because this has got some hair on it that we're trying to resolve and get right and move forward in a positive and meaningful way, that impugns every other district of innovation or the efforts to move it. And I'd also say, just, speaking of Corinth, I mean, talk to the folks there in Corinth. They're proud of what's going on there. There's some amazing things. If you look at their ACT, it's beating the state average. It's beating the national average. They're doing things different, and it's working. Unfortunately, we got caught up in an accountability issue, as I said, which converged with the federal government change, and we were trying to figure it out and do what's right. And oh, by the way, follow the law, which is what we have to do. So, other questions, comments?
I'd like to highlight what you said. We do have other districts of innovation in the state that have accommodated the accountability model. I mean, it's not like, and you said it, but I just wanted to highlight that because I don't think that was.
I wish we had more. I know it's expensive and it's challenging, and it's fraught with risk and dangers at the local level. But please, if anybody of the 60 people watching online, please, we encourage you to keep the effort. And if anything that the department or the board can do to be supportive of you, keep it up. Yes, sir.
What would have happened if we had reached fruition of developing that modified accountability model?
I'm not familiar with the ESEA previous waivers, but the ESSA waivers said that they presented, you get 2 waivers, one for the high school specifically, and then one for the entire statewide innovative model. So whatever we did then under ESEA was out in December of 2015. And as the rulemaking took place throughout 16 and into 17, in public hearings, it became obvious how the law would be applied, and that's how we got to this point. Okay, other questions? Thank y'all. Dr. Gavin, you're up.
Good morning. On item 7, we come to you seeking approval for 2 contracts. One is a modification of a contract for Brunstein and Manessovich. And our second item for approval is to award competitive contracts in the statewide food purchasing program. Those are the 2 contracts that we're seeking approval on for today.
Hey. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
What? Oh, I'm sorry. I said A. On 7B, only 4 items out of 50. Only 4 items Mississippi vendors were successful in. Did we get other bids from Mississippi entities?
Would you like to address that?
Mr. Franklin, we did not in most cases, simply by virtue of the fact while it is a very large market for school lunch program, it is very much so a specialized program. It's also one with slim margins. We don't have many vendors in Mississippi who make the products that actually fit within the school lunch program. So it does limit our pool a little bit. Yes, sir.
Okay, on item 8, we're seeking approval for 2 competitive grants. The first grant being the 21st Century Community Learning Center program. And item B is the McKinney-Vento Education for Homeless Children and Youth program. 2 items for approval for grants.
Questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I mean, it's just for my knowledge background. What school district is Save the Children's?
So just under 21st Century, Dr. Elam? So 21st Century grant is not exclusively available to school districts. It's also available to local entities and nonprofits and other eligible organizations. And so that is an organization that was the lead applicant in their community. I can look that up. I don't have the specific community that's in. Quentin, do you happen to know? We can get you that. Got a school name. Let me double check the district name, and I'll let you know. All right. I believe
it's not going to change my vote.
I believe it's North Bolivar, if I'm not mistaken.
I was just wondering if we were getting the low, the underserved.
National group that does work and have been in Mississippi for a number of years.
I'm not objecting. I just was information that we were hitting those schools most in need.
Ma'am.
Nope. And then any other? You're good? All right. Dr. Vanford, if you'll come back up and review the kindergarten readiness assessment results information.
Again, item 9 is a joint presentation between the Offices of Accountability and Academic Education, and your green folder also has a copy of the PowerPoint displayed on the board. So as you know, the statewide kindergarten readiness assessments required in Mississippi Code 372111. What the presentation will have for you today is a comparison of students enrolled in 3 programs: the Early Learning Collaboratives, other funded public pre-K programs, and public kindergarten. The presentation that Dr. Oakley will provide will summarize the data for you, as well as provide next steps for schools and districts, as well as the NDE.
Thank you. So as we look at slide 2 and 3 in just a minute, I want you to keep in mind that this is beginning of year data for 4-year-old students, and the benchmark that we're comparing against is an expected end of year benchmark for 4-year-old programs. All right. We administer the STAR Early Literacy Assessment as our kindergarten readiness assessment. Renaissance does not have sufficient data to give us what the beginning of year 4-year-old benchmark might be. And so we use this really just to inform teachers about where their students are, which of their students may be already demonstrating kindergarten readiness, which ones need additional support. It gives some foundational understanding to teachers and classrooms and principals about their pre-K performance as they try to grow those students over their 4-year-old year. So first, on slide 2, this is our early learning collaboratives. These are 4-year-old students who just started in their programs in August, and you can see over the last 3 years, this data has remained relatively flat, roughly 17–18% each of the last 3 years, meeting that readiness benchmark. They're at or above that end of year benchmark score at the beginning of their pre-K year. As we look at the other funded pre-K programs, this also sits very closely aligned with the collaboratives. It is slightly lower. Keep in mind that our other funded pre-K programs would also include a number of districts that exclusively have developmentally delayed special education classrooms for their pre-K students. And so there's potentially a larger special education population here, additional students served that might not be in a regular pre-K classroom. The board approved several months ago a number of blended pre-K grants, and we're looking forward to bringing back another application for additional blended pre-K programs to help districts get those programs started, to put special education and general education 4-year-old students together, learning in the same environment, in the same classroom, from the same teacher and assistant and inclusion teacher, however those are designed. But this data looks very much like it has in recent years and very similar to our collaboratives. On slide 4, this is our beginning of year kindergarten readiness results. So that 498 benchmark that we all know and love from our 4-year-old programs leads to a 530 beginning of year benchmark for kindergarten readiness. And this demonstrates a 70% likelihood that a student's going to be proficient in 3rd grade reading. Over the last 3 years, you can see this this benchmark rate, the percent of students meeting that benchmark has remained, again, relatively flat at 36%. This is our roughly 36,000 students in kindergarten statewide. So when we talk about how many of our students come into Ms. Rye's kindergarten classroom every year ready for the content she's got to teach them, 1 out of 3. What we know, there's two takeaways from this though. Our end of year kindergarten results tell us that students in Ms. Rye's classroom, not her specifically, but for example, 2 out of 3 of those students are exiting kindergarten ready for first grade. So kudos to our kindergarten teachers and school leaders across the state and parents that are working with their kindergarten students to move them forward academically. But this 1 out of 3 entering kindergarten continues to be a talking point for us as a department as we stress the importance of high-quality early childhood experiences, whether that's in a public pre-K, in a collaborative, title-funded, Head Start, a private provider, wherever that might be. We've got to work as a state to strengthen those opportunities for students to be ready for kindergarten content. The other piece that's worth noting, so this is our statewide data with the 36% readiness rate. Our collaboratives in the 17-18 school year, if you think back just a couple of months, our readiness rate for those collaborative students, the 2,000 students in the collaboratives, was 75%. It's been 75 to 78% the last couple of years. So when we look at the collaboratives, we see a tremendous impact for them in getting those students ready for kindergarten compared to the state population of kindergarten as a whole. And we're looking forward, a year from now, having our spring of 19 map data and being able to look at that first year of collaborative students that moved through kindergarten through 3rd grade. What did their outcomes look like in 3rd grade? What are the implications there? Did we maintain that progress? Did we see additional students kind of catch up to those students? All of that is in the works as we start to look at how we can use long-term data to inform policy and to inform professional development and other supports.
Dr. Oak, we mentioned to them also about what we're going to be doing with our Kellogg grant and our coaches, because I think that's going to be very powerful that will impact this data.
Absolutely. So when we look at our next steps for districts and schools and for the department, we'll be doing a lot from the department to continue to support that work. In addition to the Kellogg grant that was mentioned this morning connected to the Office of Teaching and Leading, there has also been a Kellogg grant that's been in place connected specifically to early childhood. And so I'll double back to that. Let me walk through the district things, and then we'll talk about kind of how this other Kellogg grant is supporting from the department as well. We're encouraging districts to continue to look at available funding to expand pre-K programs in their communities. Mr. Franklin reminds the Academic Achievement Subcommittee every month that what can we do to address pre-K? How can we put more pre-K into place? We have a next step document for districts to use to kind of take those assessment results and know how they can use those going forward as they work on transitioning from pre-K into kindergarten, as they work with parents in workshops using the family success guides that are both in English and in Spanish, as they potentially collaborate with their campaign for grade level reading or look to establish a campaign community. We've got a number of those across the state, and there's growing interest in those to address early childhood literacy, chronic absenteeism, summer learning loss, and how all those interplay with one another and impact academic achievement. We also know that this information can help inform staffing decisions. Do I need to provide some additional professional development or provide additional resources or funding or other kinds of change the programming or the content, the materials I'm using in a kindergarten or pre-K classroom? The transition folders are helpful to inform conferences with the teachers and the kindergarten and pre-K teachers as the students come from a Head Start into a public school setting. Those kindergarten teachers need to know where the students were at the end of their 4-year-old year. So give me some useful information so that I can hit the ground in August with some recent data on student performance, on student challenges, and to help them go forward. It can also be used to help with instructional planning, develop individual reading plans for Literacy-Based Promotion Act, and then to develop partnerships for local providers, private and public, both. Collaboration with local libraries can be a key. There are a lot of libraries that offer after-school reading programs or summer reading programs, and so working alongside those libraries to ensure that those supports are available for families. There's a Read at Home plan. It's been in place for several years now. It's a resource for schools to work supporting literacy K through 3rd grade. And then we also, as we're looking at the results, we've noted districts that had a lower districts on the lower end performance-wise with their beginning of year results for kindergarten, and we're ensuring that we've got a literacy coach, either a literacy coach in those schools or maybe an early childhood coach in those schools or we're providing them the opportunity for learning walks to visit another school with another classroom, trying to ensure that we've got some supports in place to help those schools that are particularly behind the 8 ball with regard to where those students are coming in, help them grow those students over their kindergarten year so they can reach that 2 of 3 or greater exiting kindergarten going into 1st grade. So for the district, and as Mr. Franklin has spoken to, professional development has been so key to all of the work the department has done in recent years, whether that's through our professional development coordinators, through the North Mississippi Education Consortium Ole Miss model, whether that's through the Kellogg coaching grant that we have that's providing not just coaches, but family engagement liaisons and PD coordinators for early childhood. We've got to continue to address the professional growth and professional development and professional learning of our teachers in the state who are working with our boys and girls in the classroom every day. The Kellogg grant is really around professional development, in some fashion, embedded professional development, coaching for pre-K teachers, but also around the development and delivery of regional professional development focused on early childhood, focused on our early learning standards and early learning guidelines, focused on best practices when we look into a kindergarten or pre-K classroom, what kind of layout and structure we want to see instructionally, physically with the room layout and furniture and space designated for whole group time and center time for students to learn in a collaborative, interactive, hands-on kind of way. But we've got to continue to provide professional development support as we support that continuum from birth all the way through 3rd grade. As you're well aware, we've recently adopted early learning standards that tie in from birth, infants and toddlers, and coordinate all the way through 12th grade as a state. And that was done in collaboration with private providers and Head Start and other community entities across the state to make this happen. The development and provision of resources, again, is important. When we talk about professional development, some of that is resources for teachers to use. We've developed some integrated literacy activities for kindergarten, and then we are also, Dr. Dent's team and Ms. Greer and the others in early childhood are working. We've recently released to districts across the state basically a request for teachers to provide instructional strategies that we can then coordinate or align to our early learning standards so that teachers have a sense of how, what's a strategy I could take to teach and measure student outcomes on individual, on specific learning standards. But all of this work has got to continue if we want to see the outcomes coming into kindergarten and then moving through elementary and secondary continue to improve.
Questions? All right.
Thank you.
Next, we have information update on the Knoxville County School District. Dr. Cole, Dr. Gavin.
Good morning. By way of update, this is a joint presentation. The board will be happy to know that this has been truly a collaborative effort inside the Department of Education as we're working with the Knoxville County School District. Each chief has been involved in the work that we're doing. On July 19th, you so wisely decided to vote to abolish the Knoxville County School District contingent upon the governor's declaration. We hired at that time Dr. George Gilriff to go into the district because school had already started and the superintendent, the interim superintendent, was needing to get out of his contract and move to the state on the 23rd of August. So I'd like to just say that Dr. Gilriff started the school year off and did a tremendous job in getting us up and running. And simultaneously we had Mr. Broadnax, who will have a share of the table with us in a moment, to come down and open the school, to start the school, even though he was not able to get here until the 23rd, which we found that to be very pivotal in starting to work with the district, because at that time he had an opportunity to meet with community leaders. He had an opportunity to meet with parents, and we found that to be very helpful moving forward. And as we outlined, Mr. Broadnax then came on the 23rd to really start his official transition into the district. We subsequently had 5 community meetings since then with community. Community engagement has been very important in this transition. What we found in Knoxville County is that this community has been very supportive of this takeover, very supportive, and it was a much needed takeover. We've since then, Dr. Gavin and I have met with Mr. Broadnax and Ms. Norris, the business manager, to help outline some expectations around the finances, around the academic programming of the district. And we also had a meeting with Dr. Vanderford, and her team has assisted us in meeting with the district around the accreditation standards and the deficiencies that they had. Mr. Broadnax has been very aggressive in turning the district around in terms of once we had our meeting with Dr. Gavin, and she'll go into that a little bit more on the fiscal side. We saw very early on, we knew that we had a financial situation that was in crisis. But at that meeting, we saw that we needed to be very aggressive. And so Mr. Broadnax, after starting the school year, we were able to stop for about 3 days, the academic program, and literally move about 450 students, transform buildings, and then restart, because we knew that we had to be very aggressive about the cost savings that we were going to have to take, and at the same time push the academic programming forward as well. So as I think about that, as an aside, I'm very thankful for Dr. Wright and her having her knee in our back to push us toward greatness, because as I started thinking about this review, this was almost impossible, but we got it done. And with that said, I want to introduce Mr. Rodriguez Broadnax to you. Stand up, Mr. Broadnax. As a matter of fact, why don't you join us at the table? So we have essentially transformed central office. We've changed buildings, moved building level principals around, changed staff, with a focus on community, student engagement, and a focus on student achievement. And as I said earlier, this community has been very supportive and has been looking for a change. And you will see, as Mr. Broadnax has assured us, that we'll meet Goal 6 very shortly, which we will be a C district under this transformation. It's not a doubt in our mind that we're on the right course for the first 3 months. With that being said, we'll let Dr. Gavin speak, and then I'd like Mr. Broadnax to share a few words with you.
Okay, as Dr. Coles stated, one of the main reasons we took over the district was because of their finances. The finances, as we discussed back in July, their cash flow projections were in a very negative position. So we met with Mr. Broadnax and Ms. Pam Norris back in September, I believe, and we literally went line item by line item looking at their finances, and basically we determined that as the enrollment had decreased, the expenditures pretty much had remained the same. Staffing levels had maintained the same level, but the revenue stream was going down as well as enrollment. So we went, like I said, line by line and determined basically an average amount of expenditures that needed to be reduced. And so Mr. Broadnax and Ms. Norris were tasked with giving us an updated cash flow projection that showed them out of the red in the black by the end of this fiscal year. As you know, you all authorized the district to access $2.5 million in emergency funds. At this point, they've accessed about $1.25 million of that, with no intentions at this point of accessing any more. So they've been very aggressive with getting their spending in line. And the latest, we have conversation on a regular basis in terms of how their finances are looking. And at the end of September, they were in the black, as well as the end of October. So they've done a tremendous job of restructuring their finances. They've had to have a reduction in force, and they've taken some aggressive measures in reducing their accounts payable. So their projection is that they're actually projecting to be in the black by the end of this year. There are some expenditures associated with transforming the old buildings and moving staff around and moving students around, closing schools. There are some expenditures associated with that. But having said that, by the end of the year, they're projected to be in the black.
Fantastic. That's really great.
Mr. Bronack?
Good morning. Dr. Dean, Dr. Wright, members of the board, thank you so much. I want to thank you for allowing me to come to Mississippi and be a part of the work that you guys are doing to improve education throughout the state. I want to thank you. We are aggressively trying to turn our district around, or turning our district around through accountability, structure, and organization. Our district, again, has closed our Virgil Jones Elementary School, the B.F. Liddell Elementary School, and we have consolidated those buildings into one building, the old Nash Elementary School, that's housed right across from our office and at the central office. We had an aggressive timeline. We did close schools for 5 days, and we were able to move all of our staff around. But we reorganized our schools based on the best teachers, the best administrators, so we would not lose focus on student achievement. Once we closed schools October 8th through the 12th, we restarted schools on October the 15th. Our community came to the forefront and really helped move our schools and our students where we need to go the week that we closed. We have restarted school on a positive level, a positive note. We've designed academic accountability, designed and implemented a new lesson plan framework around the Mississippi Professional Growth System. We've also designed and implemented a teacher portfolio that almost mirrors the national board certification portfolio. I believe that if our teachers are good, our students will be even better. That portfolio allows for principals to be able to score those each quarter, and allows our teachers to be accountable, for reflective and organized as well as we begin to move our district forward. It also designs us to have, or develops us to have ongoing conversations about instruction in the classroom without particularly having a formal or informal evaluation done. But it keeps those conversations candid about what's going on in the classroom to allow principals and administrators to know what's going on with students and student achievement. Finally, we've created a new Office of Accountability, Accreditation, Data, and Curriculum, led by Mr. Richard Balico, and tell you, he's running it just like it's the Department of Education. And we are aligning our goals with the department's goals to ensure that we're all on the same page. So those are some of the initiatives that we have began, and there's some other things we'll be rolling out soon. But the accountability is in Knoxville County. I have spoken with the Rotary Club of the county, and things are going very well. I would say we have about 90% support, 95% support with this takeover in the county. I'm working. I normally leave work probably 7, 8 o'clock every night, but we're going to get the job done. Any questions?
Let me just congratulate you, because as we say in Mississippi, you ain't from around here. And for you to go in and galvanize the community and get them behind you and get community leadership to move your district in a positive direction speaks volumes about your leadership. And so we appreciate what you've done. Remind us where you came from.
South Dakota.
South Dakota.
South
well, that's
Dakota.
not close to us, trust me. But anyway, we do appreciate that, and we are just grateful for what you're doing for the children of Knoxville County.
Thank you.
Hadn't impacted your football team, but they're doing very well. But you're doing good in that respect.
I do want to thank Dr. Cole, Dr. Gavin, for working closely with us, Dr. Vanderford's office, and all of our chiefs here working closely with us as we move forward. And my director of finance is not here, but Mrs. Norris has done a wonderful job in helping lead the charge with our finances. So I want to give her kudos while I'm here to you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All
Awesome. Great work. Okay, we'll go to the approval of action items.
Consent agenda.
Consent agenda. Okay, any questions? Hearing none. Now, I'll move to the approval of action items under the Office of State Superintendent. Do I have a motion to approve item 1?
So moved.
I second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Under the Office of Chief Academic Officer, do I have a motion to approve items 2 and 3? Favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Under the Office of Chief Accountability Officer, do I have a motion to approve item 6?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Under the Office of Chief Operations Officer, do I have a motion to approve items 7A, 7B, 8A, and 8B?
So move.
Okay, well, let's break them apart. Let me restate the motion. Under the Office of Chief Operations Officer, do I have a motion to approve items 7A, 8A, and 8B?
So move.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Second, under the Office of Chief Operations Officer, do I have a motion to approve item 7B?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Under the consent agenda, do I have a motion to approve items A, B, and C?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let me kind of poll our board here. We're at 12:07. I'm told that we have a short executive session. You guys good to keep rolling here, or do you want to go to lunch and come back? Keep rolling. I'm seeing head nods. So we are going to then move into the consideration of executive session.
Board members, I move that the board consider making a closed determination of the need to go into executive session.
Motion, I have a second.
Second.
All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, please clear the room. In executive session, the board approved the appointment of Education Bureau Director 2 to serve as researcher for the statewide longitudinal data system grant program within the Office of Technology and Strategic Services. All right, we're on the 12th item, State Board of Education report on any meetings attended.
We're going so fast, Jason. I actually already pretty much reported on the meeting that was held in Chicago, CCSSO, the diverse learner ready, excuse me, I'm having allergy problem. The only additional things, this was about the diversity and the culturally responsive. And there was one thing brought up, in we had excellent speakers, but the one thing that really caught my attention is, and some of you that are certainly out in the workforce now recognize this, but national data, not Mississippi, but national data shows that the general workforce is becoming more and more diverse, yet the teacher workforce is moving slowly, not dramatically, but slowly in the reverse direction. It's becoming less and less diverse. So in reality, and there's nothing we can do about it now, but teacher diversity should have been addressed 15, 20 years ago in order to be at pace with what's happening with the workforce in the U.S. And really the same can be said for cultural responsiveness in the classroom. Research, again, shows that many children are finding it very difficult, in fact impossible in some situations, to learn because their teachers make little or no effort to understand that they come from a different background than the teachers themselves. And again, this really should have been addressed years ago. So in conclusion, well, no, then I want to say, then half of the meeting was really spent listening to lectures, but the other half was in team meetings, and we had an excellent facilitator with our group, Tammy from the American Institute for Research, and she helped a lot with us formulating plans that how we will programmatically move forward to improve the diversity and cultural responsiveness of teachers in Mississippi.
Any other meetings attended or approval of attendance in meetings to come?
I want to mention very quickly, Dr. Wright had mentioned earlier about we were at the, Mr. Bailey and I, we were all at, Dr. Kelly, we were at the MASA meeting. I thought it was a great meeting, the presentations. And I guess the thing that I went home feeling so good about, just about every speaker and everybody I ran into out there was talking about what to do about children. I thought it was good.
Any other business?
I got one report. On October 23rd, I had the good fortune to be able to lead several superintendents from Harrison County schools, in addition to Dr. Nathan Oakley and some business leaders over to West Florida High School. West Florida High School has put together a comprehensive high school that really caters to career and technology. They also have traditional high school track. They actually have about 13 different skills or career tracks in place where industry actually help to support and pay for those skills tracks. We are looking to establish a similar high school in Harrison County, and we've stood up a committee that is made up of the superintendents and their staff from throughout the county, and some of the folks here at MDE looking towards planning for that. So we're excited about it.
Be separate and apart from the District of Innovation. It'd be its own entity.
That is correct. It will be separate.
I've been to that high school 10 years ago with Glenn East
Awesome.
and Henry Arledge.
They're about to build a brand new campus. It has gotten to be so popular that they have had to put in place a lottery system for students to get into it.
Wow.
It's not a charter school or magnet school.
It is not a charter school.
Okay. Yes, sir. Yep.
Dr. Kelly was recognized at Massa, but we had two former staffers that were also
Or for those two ladies for sure. Okay. Under other business, the December board meeting will be held on December 20th, 2018 in Jackson, Mississippi at the Central High School building starting at 10 a.m.
Second.
I was saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, we are adjourned on time and under budget.